It's power time. Get ready, let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome to Powertime. I'm joined here with a couple of special guests today. I'll let the boys do a bit of an introduction on what they do and who they are, but super keen to get into a conversation about data and AI and drill into kind of the depths of where agents are at. But Ananth, maybe we'll kick off with a bit of an introduction on who you are and what you do at Microsoft.
Sure, Scott. Thank you for having me, Scott and Matt. This is amazing to be here. So my name is Ananth Prakash. I lead the pre-sales architecture team for data and AI across Australia and New Zealand in Microsoft. Been with Microsoft for close to 7 years. But the transformation through AI that I have seen since 2022 November till now has been nothing short of transformative and phenomenal, right? Like you've hit it on the head. It is the era of AI, and I absolutely am looking forward to chatting with you, Matt and Vyas, on what the new world of agentic AI would look and how data plays a crucial role in shaping the AI journey for our customers and partners.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having me
Ananth.
again.
And we're looking forward to the conversation. Obviously, Matt and I focus a lot on the low-code side of the platform, so it'd be great to hear from the pro-code side with you guys with a lot of the work you do as well. And Vyas, just a bit of an intro on who you are and what you do.
Likewise, yeah. And so thanks for having me on, guys. So I'm Vyas. I'm part of the Azure Data and AI business as well. I play the role of the CTO for ANZ for Data and AI. Been with Microsoft now coming up 7 years as well. It's a bit of a weird coincidence, but I've been in the AI space for about over a decade now. But before that, I used to be in pure business as well. So consumer goods, marketing, sales, retail. Before that, I was with Accenture as well. So bit of a mixed bag of experiences and really I think looking forward to a discussion today between pro code, low code. The era of AI has been meaningful for me because I think it's that era where people actually started to take AI seriously. They could see it in action and effect, and outside of the tools of choice, I think we have learned so much over the journey on where can people really drive impact, how do they kind of reskill themselves and think about which bets to prioritize, because everything can look like an AI use case as well, right? So looking forward to the conversation, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
awesome.
man.
And it's great to have you guys from the data and AI side of the Microsoft on the pod today. Matt, it's been a busy few weeks. We've had builds and a whole bunch of other stuff drop over the last few weeks. Anything top of mind across build, the sessions that you've watched so far?
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of functions and features now kind of being rolled out to the Power Platform and specifically. So again, we kind of cover off most of the low code stuff, but I think for me, what kind of Ryan demonstrated was really effective. Yeah, so that whole concept of plan designer and how that's getting more powerful to really build more agentic applications within Power Platform now. We're not just building Power Apps and Power Automate solutions. Yeah, there's really this age of agents apps in low code. So I think that plan design is going to be really effective. We're actually hosting a number of hackathons at the moment, and particularly when it comes to Copilot Studio, we're building a lot of sort of low code with Copilot Studio being in the front end orchestrator, and then really extending it out into Azure AI Foundry. We're finding a lot of use cases are sort of needing Azure when it comes to some of those sort of functions and features as well. So yeah, interested in broadening that conversation with the two guys on the podcast today. It's perfect timing. We are actually hosting a hackathon next week. So I'll be picking their brains for some of the solutions that we'll be building and what sort of tools and stuff that we should utilize as part of that hackathon. But what about yourself, Scott? What have you
I'm going to
found
say,
build?
I mean, I posted all over LinkedIn that about the Ryan Cunningham session was just amazing. For those that didn't watch it, I'll put it in the show notes. It was just a whole new world of what's kind of the buzzword at the moment is really the multi-agent applications that we're looking at. And my team and us, part of our global black belt team and whatnot, built a really good, solid demo around this for a tier 2 bank in Australia in the last 2 weeks. Involved MCP and a whole bunch of different things. MCP, for those listening in, is the protocol that allows the agents to talk to each other, agent to agent, which was a big announcement at Build. So I think this is a game changer. You think about it, Qantas perhaps or any other airline has an agent that an agent can connect to, and you want to go book a flight, you can do an agent to agent conversation, right? And it takes the payload from one agent, gives it to the other, and the agent understands what's in the payload and the context of the conversation. So I think this protocol is going to be really important moving forward on B2B kind of agents as we build. But what the guys demonstrated in the last couple of weeks was really this: can we front end an application and and have multiple agents running off and doing a whole bunch of different things. And it was really impressive, like the accuracy, the LLMs now, like there wasn't a lot of hallucinations that we saw. In fact, it was filling out forms really good. We had the ability to be able to have, human in the loop, so the human would check the output and then commit that to the final outcome. And so what that meant was that it's just a huge time saver for the people that were involved in this process. And really impressive. It's a whole different world now, the way we talk about how we solve business process, and even down to being able to point an agent at a documented business process. So in our world, we would have constructed the business process and then guided people along that journey in what we call a business process flow, right? That's a core piece of Dynamics and the platform. Now you can just point an agent at a PDF document that already has an outlined process and go follow this process and give me an outcome. Really interesting way of solving customer problems, but when I look, very, very impressive the way it's been done. So and the ability to be able to jump into Azure and do what you need to do as well there. Also for Build, they announced the bring your own kind of model as well. So being able to leverage different language models to be able to get different outcomes, which I've already started playing around with, and it's really impressive as well. So Go Mini is something you can use now and whatnot. There was also we had Elon Musk on Build as well. Yeah. We had Sam Altman on Build. Did we have Jensen as well? I think there was
he was on Build.
Jensen. So we had the whole gang.
Sacha brought out the big guns for Build. He brought them all out. So
he did, yeah. So that was
billionaires in one build, right? So
yeah. There's a lot of
you went on Build, Scott. I'm surprised you went on Build. He didn't build Scott meetings out from Powertime. He didn't. Okay, all right.
To be fair, he called me, right, and I just said, you know what, the keynotes are big enough for me now. I just, Elon asked me to do something else, so I just thought I'd go.
But all jokes aside, like you said, there is so much happening within AI and the platform. The way we would have designed something 3 months ago is completely different now. Almost not completely different, but it's slightly different now. Like you say, these documented visualization of business process flows, being able to point an agent at that, 3 to 6 months ago, that wasn't there. You know what I mean? So the rate with this technology is improving, and it's really keeping, partners like ourselves on our toes. We have to keep learning and innovating and evolving with this technology as it grows and transforms. And I'm assuming the same from within Microsoft as well, with, the rate that it's sort of evolving from that standpoint.
It's phenomenal. So, I'm trying to organize some partner sessions to show the kind of agent-based architecture that we're talking about now, because if a partner demonstrates to us something that doesn't involve agents and language models and things like that now, then it's a concern, right? We need to be able to get everyone up to the right skill. But Ananth, you've probably got plenty of comments on this. You guys naturally have a different partner ecosystem to us.
Yep. I was just going to add to what Matt was mentioning, right? And you mentioned MCP, Model Context Protocol. There was an announcement from Annie Pearl. I was just looking up on LinkedIn yesterday. So Microsoft Learn platform is now available for all developers around the world to embed into their application. So we have open sourced it, and using the APIification that MCP allows you to do, developers around the world and partners, including Power, so you can actually embed a Microsoft Learn content into a Power App or onto any application that you need, right?
Yep.
And think about that application run by an agent itself. So you could have a potential an agent actually learning off the Microsoft Learn content, and all enabled through MCP. And this was announced 2 days ago, and it's on LinkedIn. It's on GitHub. It's open sourced. So
wow,
it once again goes back to the commitment that Microsoft gives, right? I mean, when we say we love open source, we definitely do. Even in the era of AI, where you've got multiple vendors, there's a lot of products, there's a lot of big LLMs out in the market, a lot of technological tools or toolkits and methodologies available to get agent going, but giving the power back in the hands of developers and communities to actually, make the impact spread wider was amazing. So I really love that announcement. I would love everyone. I'm happy to drop that link, the GitHub link.
Yeah, let's put it in the show notes
on the show.
It's really
It'll be great for others to sort of access that and take it forward. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that bit. You mentioned MCP, and I couldn't let that opportunity go of mentioning that announcement.
Have you known like an era before where we've supported stuff so quickly as well? Like Google kind of just announced it and then it's bang, right? That's it now. It's an industry standard like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
just rolled out. So
I think it's interesting because you're kind of seeing we are all starting to now look back at the fundamental problems we're trying to solve for, and what's when a concept like MCP comes up, you can see it's a common challenge for everybody. You kind of see where this is going, but the future isn't like a well-charted pathway to get there, like other platform shifts that have come before, right? And so, I mean, even if you look at things like when we went from the existing reporting standards we had to these tabular models and BI and the explosion of data-driven decision making that happened over the last decade, that still felt like the same capabilities, but augmented by technology to make it faster, cheaper, more accessible, etc. But this is a significant shift from that, right? So the way I kind of think about it was what's really fascinating for me is, even if you look at it, it's been about 2.5 years now since the global population started experimenting with what ChatGPT was, and I think firstly for all of us collectively that made the concept of these AI models very real, right? And but it was we still looked at it as something that was just an interaction modality. You could talk to it, it'll give you back responses, and I don't think looking at that point to now 2 years later, a lot of people kind of collectively recognize that the biggest shifts we had in the last year was, I would say, last year to 18 months, we had introduction of things like reasoning within these models. There's a lot of debate about where that applies well. Multimodality, you kind of called that out as well, where previously you would just chat with documents, but now the format of the data isn't really as important as much as you can take whatever you give it. And that's going to continue to evolve as well, right? The ability for a singular model type to take in video, audio, all of that. But also things like, having over the last, I would say, 18 to 20 months, we've seen a lot of progress in domain-specific models as well come out, like including the ones that we host on our platform. That I saw this really interesting example that I kind of talked to where previously, if you look at time series forecasting, that was a domain that required a lot of depth expertise. And I think I'd seen a vendor based out of the US go and build out something like a large language model, but all it was trained on was time series. So you could just give it a time series and it seemed to predict really, really well what the next kind of sequential events was, right? So you're kind of seeing these kind of trifecta of things, which is reasoning, planning, memory, that kind of capability, multimodality, and the third one being a lot of domain expertise built in these models. And I think in a nutshell, it's, the key kind of takeaway here is we now have AI, which when we say agentic, it's really because they have agency. They have agency to kind of act on their own and plot a pathway forward, so to speak. So that example you called out, Scott, around previously, if you had to map out a business process and build something in AI, that would be a lot of build effort. But now you just fundamentally what you're doing is here's what we would do. How would you approach it? Go solve it, right?
Yeah. And you know what was really interesting, Vyas, about that process that I saw the guys do was all of a sudden now we're really worried about and concerned about what the prompt is, right? So even using AI Builder to create a prompt to be able to get done what we need to get done, but then you tweak the prompt if it's not quite giving you the right output. It's a very different way of creating a proof of concept to what we're used to in the past. So
absolutely, right? The measure for success. I think that's the other kind of what we are reflecting on now is, we've had within Microsoft, within the data and AI practice as well, we kind of look at almost like a TV show. It's a season 1 of AI that we saw in the first 18, 20 months. And then season 2 is we suddenly got this accelerated capability. Big part of that because AI is building our own system as well. We are accelerating how we build AI because of our ability to use that for code gen and platform design. To your point, Ananth, if you could point AI at the largest repository of Microsoft Learn documents that we have, how much of that does that enable, general population to start building systems intelligently without having a deep level of technical expertise, right? So for us, I think fundamentally when we look at enterprises and the region where we're seeing AI and success, a lot of that now comes back to we could do a whole bunch of things with AI, but where do we meaningfully point it to a level that it, like if everything could be an AI use case, and it tends to be, but few drive organizational momentum to want to adopt it at scale, what would those right bets be, right? And that's where I think we're starting to see a lot of kind of success between what we would arguably call our first mover of customers that went and really pushed the boundary versus those that were like taking a step back and trying to test what works best for them. But I think there's a lot we can learn from these first movers who've seen success in organizational AI and fundamentally transform their business through that, right? Lots of learning for us as well.
Yeah.
From a partner standpoint, we're really seeing the way we design experiences for our customers and and our end users completely changing. Yeah, like you mentioned before, multimodality, voice, chat, all those types of things. Yeah, so we're really starting to see customers also be aware of how they can start to push the boundaries and start to think a little bit differently. The days of having a form, field, chat interface, they're kind of moving towards these more agentic-based experiences, voices, being able to drop a document in and that trigger a subsequent workflow based off that. So again, probably in the last 2 or 3 months, I've really seen customers start to have that sort of, tipping point where, oh, we should be looking at this, we should be looking at this, and all of that kind of stuff. So a lot of really cool experiences are kind of getting built out at the moment, and also ideated upon as part of our sort of ideation sessions that we've been running as part of that. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's what we're seeing from a sort of a partner landscape as well.
Yeah, and conversely, I suppose from what we're seeing with customers is them having a series of business processes now that they want us to focus on and go, look, can you build agents around this or optimize this process, and what would that look like? So we're kind of going into this proof of concept phase, which was, the app that I just spoken about earlier on the podcast. And I think moving forward, I think we'll do a lot more of those. I mean, Matt, you called it out in our predictions in January, the year of the agent. It's definitely the year of the agent, right? Like we're feeling that right across the board. But the key thing that I've noticed is there's a clear delineation with customers that those have adopted security and governance early and got their data estate sorted. Yeah. And they're going like wildfire through AI. Like here's processes, let's get it. And then there's those that are gone, how do we secure this thing? And they're still having the conversation. And it's kind of like, all right, well, let's get that done. So Vyas and Ananth, how have you guys found that security and governance conversation at the Azure layer? How has that been? Are customers mature in this now, or where do you find it?
Ananth, I'll let you go first here. You've got a lot of ground experience, and I'll come back for a more high
Sure,
level view.
why not? So look, so the question, Scott, is do we see customers who are mature enough in thinking about security and governance when it comes to AI led through data, right? So look, there's not a straightforward answer to it, right? So governance and security, I think what needs to start is, even we as Microsoft, we learned, so now we adopt a secure by design approach. So any products that we build, we've kept security as the fundamental basis of how our products are going to be shaped up, our solutions are going to be shaped up. And needless to say, governance plays a centralized role in it. So I think customers do put a lot of emphasis on security. And again, it really depends on industry, the regulations that those industry, the customers operate in, the compliance terms, that is sort of forced on those customers, industries as well. What is more important is the lens of security through AI. AI, if you look at an AI business process, as you've spoken about, it transects a lot of different organization units within an organization, right? And each of those organization unit would have its own threat, a risk, and a security vulnerability assessments defined. When we talk about process mining, each of these orgs have a separate process, and it's the IT systems that realize the data out of this process. So the data that comes out is, if you understand, is a realization of all those complex assessments put together. So it is really important for customers to understand, before even looking at security and governing AI, how do you think about securing and governing your data assets? Because AI doesn't run independent of data. AI is run on top of your data. So all the security and the governance best practices that you apply on your data, on your applications, on your people as well, because the people matter, that would then automatically transcend into AI. When it comes to AI, we speak about responsible AI practices, which we follow in Microsoft, right? There are about 6 principles. I think how you use AI responsibly and how do you govern AI responsibly, that becomes a matter of a different conversation. So when we apply a security and governance lens to AI, it just can't be focused on saying, hey, if this is a responsible AI practice, if this is what you adopt, it's not a here-there conversation. It has to start from, what is the data that the AI operates upon? What are the different people or the user personas that the AI would use? You mentioned low code. There's a no-code AI as well, right? Copilot is a no-code AI. It's a chat interface. Does that mean a chat interface cannot have security? Heck no. I mean, you do not
And
want
then now
to
we
give
have to deal
everybody
with
an access to a chat.
vibe coding as well, right? So there's
Correct.
another
Correct.
pillar
Yes,
that's come our way, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to give developers access to a sensitive
It's the
database that
ultimate
they are
shadow
probably
IT.
cutting a code on,
Yeah.
building an app on?
Mm.
Do you want to give a
Yeah.
vibe coding to someone who's already got a job offer with other company? It's pretty hard to sort of
Yeah, it's so
build
multi-layered, isn't it? Right. But I know one thing that definitely, if the customers that are not having the conversation about this stuff now, like you want to be having that conversation this year. I think
Yeah,
if you're leaving it till next year, well, I'll give you a classic example, right? Like I was doing some advanced kind of calculations in OpenAI and Grok about a month ago. No chance, right? I just couldn't do what I wanted to do. Tried it again a few days ago in Grok, it solved it. OpenAI still couldn't. Grok solved it, right? And the acceleration that's going on right now, I was super impressed with Grok this week. It's every kind of, Matt and I talk about this, like every week there's this like something that impresses me in AI, and this week
Sam will drop something, or
something. Actually, there was probably three things, because there was Grok, there was Vivo 3 that Google dropped. Like that's just ridiculously good. And the third one was the Groot operating system that Jensen launched around the ability to train robots in real time. Is just, if anyone hasn't seen that, like go and check that out. Go and look TikTok, YouTube, whatever. But the ability to be able to create this realism of an environment, give it to a robot, and then have it learn automatically, game changer. I think it's not going to be long. So, I mean, that's what makes it real, right? Like, so you got a robot in your house running around, connecting to your data systems. In the end, it's still just tech. It's still just governance.
100%.
We need to secure it.
Just to round off my point there, Vyas, is, when it comes to security, that's why when we speak about AI in Microsoft, and Vyas does it in his function as a CTO day in, day out, we speak about getting your foundational platform, because this is Azure. This is a build. This is not a buy platform, right? Where customers can actually go buy an application as a software service or even as a PaaS. You've got to go and build your bespoke AI applications on top of there. So that's why we say getting a secure AI landing zone is super critical. All those coffee vending machine of getting your subscriptions right, your network, your security, your identity access right from an AI standpoint is critical. B, we've also baked governance and observability into the AI Foundry platform itself, right? So when you look at AI Foundry as a platform, it's got all the security aspects, the governance aspects into it. How do you explain a large language model? You can't explain it. It's a black box. But can you observe it? Yes. Can you realize, can you audit log the data trails that it throws? Yes. Does the platform give you a capability to connect it back to your CM system like an Azure Sentinel? Yes, we have it, right? So that becomes really important. The enterprise capability of tying it all together is what makes an AI solution or an application more powerful. So we got to sort of tread the lines.
And we're in this new era, and I heard a couple of weeks ago where now, if you think about how we deal with large language models, in the past, if I said, here's a Dynamics application or here's a Pro Laravel application, PHP, whatever, you knew what it does. You can tell what it does, right? Technical person can figure out how that operates. With kind of language models, we drop them. We don't quite know what they're going to do until people start consuming them.
Absolutely.
So it's a really different world for tech right now, right? And you've got to have the foundation ready for that.
It is. And Scott, what you mentioned about Grok and your experience then just changing in the last 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
All of us are experiencing that. That includes like people in their day-to-day jobs, and there's a lot of debate around what's the right balance between data security, maturity, and innovation, right? Like, where do you want to not withhold that access to innovation within your business? Because when we talk about simple BI, what we were trying to do with reporting and data on top of that, like this whole last decade of trying to get businesses to be making data-driven decisions as a default versus just in using intuition as a counter to that. Right from the executive level down, there was a lot of focus around getting your data assets right, your strategy right, and all of that. But even a decade later, with the most powerful tools that we couldn't have thought of functioning at the level that we do 15 years ago, what we see now is still, you might have a great report or a dashboard. Almost immediately, everybody looks for the export to Excel button, takes it out into Excel, likely loads it into ChatGPT and starts asking questions. Because that's really what's happening, right? Because I think the biggest change that's happening to all of us is the way we consume insights is changing. We're not we're not content. People generally aren't anymore. We're just having to navigate to an asset to get insights and then act on it. You want to ask a question, you want to get a response back, right? In whatever modality that is. So I think the way I think about data security and governance, especially when the pace of change is so fast, is it's never going to be a perfect state. And there is a lot of what Ananth kind of touched about is there is infrastructure data security. So how do I make sure my data is secured from external access, right? That's the first thing. And the second, from AI, is more to think about contamination and leakage. So when my AI is able to access and draw responses based on a lot of data, how do I make sure it's getting the right data when it has organizational access? It can't tell the difference, right? Definition of what a product marketing outcome is for one part of our business would be very different to another part of the business. The same metrics, right, might be different. So you want to make sure it's interpreting the right data while it starts to broaden these multi kind of agent scenarios, starts to broaden access to data in itself, right? There's the way I kind of think about it is if you're an organization that's trying to kind of adopt AI over the last few years in the context of what we see today, Matt, I think you called out well. A lot of that concept is really how do I change my user experience based on what they do today, right? Like and working back from there, right? And we see a lot of organizations kind of go very quickly through this ramp of, we want to do AI. We'll pull off a proof of concept, potentially get AI in the periphery of their system. So you have an AI chatbot or one kind of process automated, and then it kind of halts there. Like getting to that level of what we talk about. How do I go from an AI use case to AI transformation is the big barrier. And that's that wall everybody seems to hit. And where I see a bit of that nuance is, some organizations took a step back and said, data security governance is everything. We're going to build a data strategy first before we do any AI because it's crucial, right? And by the time they start to develop their AI strategy, new AI has come out. The next thing has happened.
The next
and
thing.
This leakage happens all the time. Right?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like you touched on something there that was really relatable to me, which is in a multi-agent demo, if you think about how we used to operate 2, 3, 4 years ago, even probably a year ago, you look at a Power BI report and go, oh, my sales pipeline's going down, I need to go do something, right? That's how we operate. It was a human to data kind of relationship. But It's very clear to me after watching the demos and the POCs that we're doing right now that the agent is making the decision. So it's like the agent, go and look at this decision tree, then look at this data. And if our pipeline is low, then go and create a marketing campaign and get our marketing team to approve it, or go and reach out to the customer, or go and reach out to the salesperson and find out what's going on and respond back to me. So it's this use of data that's fundamentally changing because that's happening at kind of light speed now. Like as soon as there's a change in the data, it can respond to it instantly. So if you don't get the data right, you're not going to get AI right, and the agent's useless. So
because there's a debate around that, like how then do we there's the most common question we get: how do we think about hallucination? Because it's going down, but it's still there. How do I deal with that when there's obviously criticality around decisions that are being made based off these agents, right? And part of the way to kind of that I'm thinking about, the hallucination kind of remains an artifact of some of these models. There's a lot of mechanisms to control that. But I think we're getting to a point now where we expect hallucinations to be there as part of the default. And we kind of, like you said, human in the loop processes cross-check the information, right? So even if you look at the AI, we all the way to kind of think about it in a lighter sense is everybody uses some version of Google Maps to navigate to work every day and to find the shortest path. How do you know that's the shortest path? It's you just kind of you assume it is. It tends to work every single time. You assume it. We use it because there's inherent value in that, right? So the same way when folks are putting data into ChatGPT to get a response back, they trust the response as being accurate, and they just go ahead with the outcome anyway, regardless, right? So I think when we take that into system design, we have to kind of consider for the level of governance and maturity and access we want is to ensure that significant breaches or reactions don't happen. But the counter alternative to that is users are doing it anyway on their own systems without control, right? So,
and I think we need to kind of think about failback in systems too. So in that scenario that I just spoke about, let's say the data is incorrect. So can the agent look at the data, see the pipeline's too low? Then can it look at another source, like is the invoicing that we've done high or low, to kind of make it a determination. And then can I just ask someone a question and just go, hey, is the pipeline open this cow? Right. And then it comes up with an answer before it goes and does an action, like an escalation to your manager or something. So I think maybe we have to go with this kind of, with agents, we have to think about a redundancy of how to allow for hallucinations to kind of find information from different sources.
Yeah.
And when does it reach out to you, right? At the level of data it's going to be accessing on, it starts alerting you every time it sees a bit of a leakage or bias, then you're going to get overwhelmed with alerts anyway. Like that human in the loop process falls because it gets overwhelmed, right? Like I said, I think obviously it depends context and nuance and the criticality of the kind of decisions trying to make. And especially like in a medical setting is going to be different from trying to adjust a marketing campaign. But regardless, I'm starting to see that people will adopt the fastest path, especially in the competitive market space we have right now. So it's important to kind of build the guardrails as we go.
I'll tell you another interesting use case. So my wife changed doctors recently, and she went to the new doctor that uses AI to do her summary after the appointment. So you sit down and have a conversation. And she said she can't believe how much better it is. And it's not for what you think, right? It's because the doctor sits there and talks to you and doesn't sit at the keyboard typing, taking notes.
Absolutely.
She said she gives you 100% of her attention whilst she's using, because she knows the entire thing is being recorded with AI and the transcribe is being done and the actions on the back of it. So the 100% of that appointment time is given to the patient. And I thought, what a fantastic story,
insane, right?
just a small one that, just makes a huge difference to people's lives. And
absolutely, right?
Just a small thing like that.
So my wife's a GP, and I ask her. We've had these debates for a couple of years now. Where I'm like,
yes, but there you go. There's a
you go back your entire. How do I know you're a good GP? Like I have no medical history or background. I'm not skilled. My preference for who a good GP is likely is because you're very articulate in explaining the problem to me and your attention. But maybe you don't know what you're talking about, right? Like, and how do I actually tell the difference? Because at the end of the day, as a GP in her practice, what I see her doing really as part of her natural approach is she's pattern matching. There's years of learning and insights, and she's trying to correlate what she's seeing to an outcome. But how's AI going to help her do that at an extraordinary scale? And there's a really good study that came out of Stanford. I think Microsoft was part of the panel as well, where they had the first level of reasoning model, so O1, which was from OpenAI, being applied to medical context, and already demonstrated like superhuman capability in terms of its resolution rate, right? And I think, like, again, how it's going to change patient, doctor kind of experience, firstly, in the time they can advocate for that problem solving, but at the same time also improving, just helping the GP kind of cross-check, have I missed everything here? Have I seen all the collection of symptoms previously? At a scale they couldn't, at a human level, like that's going to be transformative, right? As well.
Also, the consistency for the patient coming in. So the consistency of the patient coming in, they're getting the same consistent experience. Like your wife might have a different interpretation from another GP as well. So the patient ultimately is getting a better outcome because the data is coming through and getting fed, and it's learning and it's evolving, and it's becoming smarter. So sorry, Ananth, you go with your point.
No. I was going to allude to the same thing, Matt. The patient gets a more consistent experience because as a GP, the GPs don't feel as burnt out as they were before, because there's a lot of processing as a GP. You need to think, you need to understand, like Vyas said, pattern matching is one thing, but a good GP, I'm sure his wife, I know Vyas's wife quite well, and it's not about pattern matching, it's about human diagnosis, right? Because
empathy
what
as
Vyas,
well.
Right, because it's people's lives at stake. To what Vyas said, how do you trust a Google Maps that it's taking you where the shortest path? You trust it and go, because what are the implications of it? Well, you take 2 extra minutes to get to your destination. That's the worst implication if you don't take it. But you apply the same context in a healthcare setting. What happens if I don't do the right diagnosis? Well, a person can lose their lives. The whole family can be affected. So when you think about AI and the way, it's not just about the way we consume. It's about the way AI is used, adopted, and put into practice to make people's lives better. We need to start thinking about implications. And this goes to the point I think one of you made earlier. AI will become more and more and more domain specific. You will start to find that in sectors like education and healthcare, AI will be heavily regulated, heavily governed, heavily inspected. There's a lot of explainability aspects, observability aspects that will come in these two domains, because the implications are much more larger. Probably the same thing will apply in a financial industry, right? You don't want the whole global economy to be disrupted because of one small miscalculation. So I think having those implications aspects in place is going to be critical. What I'm thinking is the way we are going to operate AI, because AI is going to be in operations, and that is a reality. If we think it's not going to happen soon, well, I think we are living under a rock. AI, I think the focus will definitely shift to how can AI operations be better. And I think a lot of these AIs, they would be managed in the same way as the people in an organization will manage. When we talk about a frontier firm, all right, where we say human and agents will coexist and work together, I think you can think about agents having probably an employee ID tomorrow, right? Just like we say, you have a service principle when you run a DevOps pipeline, giving an automative capability for an agent to run across different workflows. It'll happen, right? An agent could be an employee ID, heck, you could be a manager of agents. You just don't know what my future would look like, as an example.
Yeah.
And also, the key thing to consider in an organization, like I mentioned earlier, it is still possible that within one company, you will have two different organizations who are not allowed to share their data. Take banking. A retail banking obviously would not be looking at the data systems that a core banking systems has. And when we talk about a unified data platform and AI transcending boundaries, how do you make sure there is one AI agent that can access both data on both systems and still give me probably the best discounted pricing rate for my housing loan? How do I know it is doing it right? So you will have a complex network of agents themselves managing what the data access and the boundaries of access would look like. It is a phenomenal thing to think about because agentic AI in security and governance, that's going to be a new era. Again, I think it will all come down to the implications of industry, right? How it goes. I can see Scott is already smiling. So
I was going to say, well, it sounds far-fetched what Ananth is saying, but at Builds, we demonstrated the ability for an agent to have an Entra ID. On the Planner demo that we've been talking about, you see the agents come up in Planner as employees, more or less.
Agentic DevOps. It is becoming a reality now. Corporations want to use it. I can tell you, I've met a customer, I won't give their name, in the healthcare domain. They love agentic DevOps. They want to do that. So we are going to be getting to that era. So it's we're having fun, yes, but this is the reality of it, right? I think this is what we got to be excited about. Not worry about I know there is this tendency in developers to say, I love Hugging Face, I love this, I love that. Great,
that'll become a later day
love it.
It's about the outcome.
It's care about the outcome, care about the value. And is it on the cloud or is it on the edge? There is a Foundry local coming in. So all of the AI Foundry, and I'm sure Google is doing it as well, OpenAI is doing it.
Yeah.
The foundational models are now being containerized, meaning it can run on our mobile devices. And think about it. It's just like the classical AI machine learning where you can containerize your LLMs and have it, on, like Vyas mentioned, multimodality. It is multi-channel experiences here, so it's an exciting
multimodality one is really interesting, right? I think even in terms of that user experience piece, the part that really, I know the video models and all that are amazingly mind-boggling to look at, but the first big kind of frontier for us was just audio conversation, right? Like this idea that previously when we used to engage with AI, whether that's your, I'm sure this will trigger my phone now to talk to Google Assistant or your Siri or whatever, it was one-way directional. You would ask it something, then you'll wait for a response back, and then you'll come back with something that's not, and you'll be like, nah, it's not what I said. You keep going back to it. But that dual-sided conversation, that's how we talk as some people. We're cutting each other off. We want to add nuance to it. And that first versions of audio models that came out started to show us that. But even in the terms of where that's improving accessibility, that I can now talk to a model midway through, I can cut it off and say, no, that's not what I was talking about. Show a bit of empathy in your conversation. But midway through, just say, no, actually talk to me in my local language, Malayalam or Hindi or Korean. And it just does it like that. To me, that means that all of a sudden you have people that you can converse and articulate in English, but you might be thinking another language. But that's significantly improved accessibility for you, the way you convey insights, or as a GP, you convey treatment plans to people that you might not speak the local language within a sense of empathy, right?
Yeah, here's another thing that's really becoming super important with customers, and that is how good can you transcribe? Now, we've been doing transcription for a long time, right?
Absolutely.
Some vendors are better than others, have better accuracy than others, but we're actually going into rounds of evaluation now. And the reason is because if you get a really good transcription on an IVR or, from a phone call, you can do things with that. An agent can go in, if its sentiment's bad, they can issue whatever you like and action off the back of that. Yeah. But if it doesn't transcribe at its heart very well, like at that simple use case, the agent is incorrect every time and it doesn't work. And the reporting doesn't work and everything breaks. So that accuracy, I would say the transcription model now, you need nearly 100% accuracy for the new world we're going into. So I urge people out there to test the transcription and just see how accurate it is. Because if you're using software that you think's great because it transcripts a call, but it's not right, you're going to change.
Makes a big difference.
This is going to be core to everything we do.
And these systems will now start making decisions in near real time, right? We're not even looking at batch transcription where it's aggregated and you can remove the error rate a bit. Decisions being made like that, right? So Ananth touched a really kind of topical piece as well around this concept of a frontier firm, like the one that we had kind of announced a couple of months back now. We had our work trend index published for 2025, right? And it's fascinating to read. It's a public document. Anyone can go look it up. I'll try and link to it as well. But even looking at it from the context of ANZ, this idea that productivity, we saw a significant growth in productivity during that COVID period where suddenly everybody went remote. And then the pressure on improving productivity has now reached a point where it's unsustainable, right? Most people, arguably, and I think there was a stat around 80% of the ANZ population that was interviewed as well, common stat globally, just felt that they just lacked the time and the energy to fulfill a lot of what they needed to do because the demand of productivity is becoming constrained. I think employees get interrupted every 2 minutes on average. We all know this, notifications, things going off. But the Australian businesses and leadership still feel that we need more productivity to compete, can stay relevant in the market and the shift that we're seeing. So this whole concept of, as we articulate in that kind of document as well, having intelligence. So the concept of intelligence now is something that can be commoditized and being available to employees on tap. Becomes the kind of future. Why this necessity is there, right? That an employee can now use an agent coexisting, get an agent to kind of automate certain parts of their workflow to really focus on more meaningful work that requires deeper expertise and thinking. Means that becomes the natural future for most organizations. Right. The idea of having not just a co-pilot, but a team of agents. Right?
It's interesting that you say this. I was on a panel recently with one of the big four banks, and one of the things I brought up was that, and I was on with a lot of learned people who are very experienced, and one of the things I brought up to the employee base was that, for the first time in human history, we have access to intelligence. It's really powerful, right? Like on what we can do with that and what, and how that's going to change things. I don't think anyone's really kind of grasped that, right, just yet. That this is it's as profound as when I could open up my phone and I've got every song on the planet on my phone. Now it's intelligence. So I think the acceleration of productivity, I think from our point of view, it's just lean into Copilot and use it for everything. I don't, I don't see any limits on it. It's the only way to do it. Also, sometimes it's just not just Copilot, or it's multi-model now, but sometimes, you're using different models for different things as well. So, but it's the security and governance that's wrapped around Copilot that makes it really important.
And like you raised a good point around Copilot as well. It's a common discussion that comes up now is like, the skills around AI and the development around AI is still very constrained and concentrated in certain pockets of the market today, right? So there's an almost like the first 2 years there was this wave of we should build everything, like everything has to be built from the ground up, because we had this conversation earlier, use the best framework, best model, best everything, and then the highest level of accuracy, even if it didn't require that. And then 5 minutes later, there's a new model and there's a new framework. We just got stuck in perpetual build, no outcome, right? And so this whole point around when do I build versus buy, I fundamentally believe, like, for the majority of use cases that are not adding differentiated value or is core part of your business itself, like just buy it. Like if you're a business or you're a retailer or you're a healthcare provider, building a platform that can be used to host multi-agent scenarios, the platform is not your core business. You're still very much in the health business, right? So where I would say you have to invest in buying is when there is arguably that is the core of your business, and there's the requirement is for you to build something that is enduring value, probably even helps you generate a new revenue line as an outcome. If you're a core banking business, as an example, build that, the rest of it, as much as you can. Why? Because you really want to empower your business users to start acting with intelligence on tap, as the concept.
That's the key thing. What you've just mentioned there, the empower, right? You just might have someone who is 1 year out of university that's joined as a graduate somewhere in your organization that looks at a business process or looks at a product and says, oh, why can't we do this? Goes to Copilot or ChatGPT or any of those models, right?
Yeah.
And starts immersing in AI and comes back with a solution that no one in the organization thought about before. But because they're AI assisted now, they've been able to solve this problem, and that just might make a lot of profit or a lot of customers happy or a lot of sick people healthy, right? And I think that's the piece now, that access to the intelligence is really important. So get the data estate right. Get your security and governance right. Invest in a platform that allows you to have people access that platform that may not necessarily super technical. And then let's just see what flourishes over the next 3 years. Organizations.
Freedom in a framework, Freedom in a framework.
That's right.
Everything set up.
100%.
I love the way you put it, Matt. Love the way you put it. And look, during my software engineering days, we were always told when we were cutting code building products, and this was a long time ago, probably 10 years ago, the key message was, even in SI firms, is time to market. Let's get the product out quick.
Yes.
Why should we get it out quick? In a quality way, of course, because people have to use that product to build a solution and get to an outcome. I think we've touched upon that before, right? And to Vyas's point, build versus buy, I think the decision shouldn't be, I understand costs, risks, security, governance are super important. But if you want to adopt AI and get to an outcome, that's the decision that everyone has to make, right? Do I spend time showcasing my engineering prowess within an organization and just build an AI platform for 2 years and not deliver anything, versus I'm going to make a hard decision. There's a COTS product out there. I'm just going to take it, get an AI value realization quicker, empower my people, like you said, Scott. But most importantly, give a channel to my customers and partners who sort of are important, crucial stakeholders in the ecosystem. Do I get them to a value realization quicker? That
Absolutely.
overall strategic view becomes super critical, as we go about in this AI journey, right? And like and you said it really well about the frameworks. So
Ananth, you raised a good point, right? I'll probably there's this. So build and buy is one, but probably the artifact that I kind of see customers often overlook, right, is this idea of like a lot of these platforms and capability use cases tend to still be approached as projects, right? Like a project with a definitive start and a stop date and a scope. But AI use cases are not like that. Like AI use cases and the transformation that you're trying to deliver, you really have to think about it as building a product versus building a project, right? Like the idea there being that, like, firstly, that point that was so important at the start, what is the end user experience like? Is that that is the most critical thing in terms of adoption. Doesn't matter how good the model is, right? Things like latency, the kind of modality you want to support, and all of that. But also, this decision between build and buy is kind of implicit there, right? Not that you can actually build anything you want to, right? But the thing that almost everyone seems to forget is what you're building, you got to maintain it as well going forward, right? And do you want to be building a platform that you're then the cost of maintaining that sits on you? And arguably, I think what often gets overlooked is there's this cost of the build versus the buy solution just being looked at the platform cost choice, often overlooking the cost of maintaining the platform in itself, right? Like, and the labor cost often is the continuous growing component here, because, like, especially with the rate of change now, that access to specialized skills within people, it doesn't exist, right? Like, it's a rarity right now. So that's kind of why I kind of come back to the point and say, really take a product-led mindset to, like, I want to build this from the end in mind, integration in mind, also being able to just put, if you were to talk about IVR and contact center as a scenario there, really making business users there able to have low-code tooling access that they can control. Like, they don't need access to this highly specialized skill to go set up security and tweak just to change an agent's rule, as an example, right? And then the rest of it, the core platform that you're choosing to build, also requires that idea, understanding that this is important enough that we have also committed to maintaining it, right? Because change is going to be like at this point now. I think we are rolling out API updates every month or so, right? It's impractical to have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go back and update
imagine.
everything.
We always talk about imagine a world where there's millions of API requests, millions of agents all running around doing things, right? And then maintaining all of that, it's going to be a nightmare in 5 years'
insane,
time, right? But
Yeah.
I think the opportunity for partners as well is repeatable assets. Go into a customer, find it, look at a business process that you think is maybe an FSI related one that every bank has the same problem or insurance company.
You're giving away my GTM strategy, Scott. So.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, go make a repeatable asset, right? Yeah. Or just buy it off Get AI. You could just buy it off Get AI.
There we go. Yeah, much better. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All good.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. You've been awesome on the podcast. Before we go, just quickly, if anyone wants to reach out, what's the best platform? How do they contact you?
For me, it's LinkedIn. I think my name's fairly easy to find.
Yes.
And it's the easiest point. Yeah. I think there's just one Vyas Venugopal in all of Australia. So
okay. Easy.
Ananth? Easy to find.
Same, Scott. LinkedIn would be my preference. But if anyone wants to chat on Twitter, I'm not a very socially active person. So you'll find me on social media, but I'm sort of a ghost there. So LinkedIn as a start.
Yeah.
But if somebody needs my email, I'm happy to share my email, depending on the discussions that want to be had.
I'll tell you what, I'll put the LinkedIn profiles in the chat if anyone wants to reach out. Of course, they can always reach out to Matt and I on LinkedIn as well. And many people do with questions and things after the show. It's a great platform to do that. So.
Thanks for the chat, guys.
Awesome. But great conversation. Anything else, Matt, from you, or we will call this a
No, all good. I really enjoyed it. So thanks again for stepping on as guest. I really enjoyed the conversation. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks, boys.
No, thank you for having us, and thanks for the last. Take care. Cheers.
Us does not represent the opinion of Microsoft, and the views expressed are those of our guests. If you found value in today's Powertime episode, give it a like, share it on LinkedIn, and tag someone who needs to hear it. You can find us on YouTube, Substack, and all your usual podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp.